Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Michael Capasso, General Director of New York City Opera. I'm thrilled to have you all here tonight as we assemble some of the creative team and cast to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the world premiere of the opera Stonewall. It was a tremendous occasion for the New York City Opera. We were honored to be able to present it and have it coincide exactly with the 50th anniversary of the uprising. And we hope that we will enlighten some people about it. And those of you who saw it can have memories with us. And those of you who didn't can petition every opera company in the world to produce it again. I'm going to, the moderator for this evening's conversation is going to be our maestro, Carolyn Kwan, and she will introduce the panel that we have. Once again, I want to thank you. We here at City Opera can't wait to get singing again and get outside again. But in the meantime, we wish you all safe, healthy, good time for you, your families, your loved ones, even your not loved ones. We want everybody to be helpful. We want everybody to be healthy and get through this. Thank you, and here you go, Maestro.
So my name is Carolyn Kwan. I'm the conductor of Stonewall, and it's really amazing to see all the faces. It's, you know, we live in a strange time, and, you know, being together is one of the few things, you know, I hold on to, and being able to remember the good time is really what's keeping me going. I'm currently in Connecticut, and but I'm very much missing my Stonewall family. Mark, you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark Campbell. I am the librettist for Stonewall.
And award-winning, Grammy and Pulitzer award-winning.
Yeah, whatever. But I'm really thrilled to be here. It's watching that video, but also seeing everyone's face. We really had a family with this opera, and I miss my family. I miss my Stonewall family.
Yeah. And Brian?
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian James Meyer. I sang the role of Carlos in Stonewall, and I'm here in my apartment in Philadelphia, same as everyone else, you know, just waiting for that time that we can all be back together. And now being a year out and looking back from the memories that we had doing Stonewall, I'm reminded of all of the wonderful people and faces and voices and hearts and souls that got to come together. And I'm happy to be here. And
you heard from Lisa? No, just no, Lisa. What was it like just seeing yourself like that? Anyway, Lisa, you introduce yourself. We'll talk more about the opera later.
Lisa Chavez, and I was Maggie, who you just saw earlier. And I'm so happy to see you all. I can't believe it was a year ago. It feels so much longer. I think a lot of what recently has happened and how we're all home. I'm home in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I think just us being home for so long, it has drawn that time out. So it just being a year ago, I feel like it's been ages. So it's nice to see all of your faces.
Jordan?
Yeah, just like everyone else, I'm Jordan. I played Renata in Stonewall, Maynard Renata. And just like everyone else, it does feel like it was ages ago. And I recently have seen all these memories popping up on Facebook of, like, you know, a year ago. And I've gotten so emotional because it was such a wonderful time for all of us. But I feel like for me, it was a really, like, oddly healing and just beautiful experience. So yeah, I'm happy to see everybody.
Jessica?
Hey everybody, I'm Jessica Fischenfeld, and I played the role of Leah. And I actually have a different experience than you guys. I feel like it was not that long ago because because of, like, the family and the bonds that we created, I've been in touch with pretty much everybody in this chat, except Michael, who doesn't have Facebook. You know, what can you do about that? But since, like, it feels like the communication never stopped. And so I was like, wait, it's been a year? So I don't know. Time is a weird thing, and especially in quarantine.
It really is. And Liz?
Hi, I'm Liz Bauk, and I played Sarah in Stonewall last year. And gosh, it was just such an incredible experience to be part of telling the history of the spirit of Stonewall, and also to be able to celebrate Pride with so many artists, all of whom, like every single person who was cast, and to those of you who aren't here, everyone was so kind and generous and just real soul people. And that's what I miss the most this year for this Pride is just being surrounded by that lovely, wonderful energy.
Well, we really are a family, you know, just to think that last year at this time, we were in the middle of the run of the world premiere production of the Stonewall in New York, you know, at the New York City Opera. So we'd like to continue with the highlight from this groundbreaking piece. So just as the raid is getting underway, here's the video. Wow, you know, Mark, I have to say, you know, when I was looking through the video, I mean, those images are so powerful in so many ways. And the words, you know, especially those last two lines, do something, what are you waiting for? I mean, so many of the words you wrote, Mark, are incredibly powerful. Do you mind just kind of walk us through the timeline and your process of writing Stonewall?
Sure. I like that you segued into that line because I didn't write those words. Those were actually stolen from someone who actually said that at that time. We don't quite know who it was, and it doesn't really make a difference because when it comes to an equal rights movement, it's the spirit of the person who did it, not specifically the person who said those words. So in terms of writing this, Michael called me or emailed me and said, I have a project for you. You have to write it in a couple days. You have to write it really quickly. And then he told me it was Stonewall, and I wanted to do it right away, of course. So
how long did it take you?
It only took me a few weeks because I've been kind of writing this story my whole life. I'm a gay man of a certain age who has benefited greatly from the people who in 1969 said enough, we're not doing this anymore, and fought back. So I went away appropriately to Cherry Grove, Fire Island, and came up with a story. I put it in 3 parts. I wanted the audience to be reminded of life before Stonewall. So every story that we hear at the beginning, we hear of Carlos, who lost his job because he's gay. You could be fired for being gay. A woman Leah, who was subjected to conversion therapy to make her not love women. And gosh, every single character, there are people I know, people I've loved, I've lived in the Village for like 40 years. I've been to many gay bars, and these are people I love, I've known, I've slept with, I've hated. I've been so lucky to know. And to be offered this gig to write an opera that honors these people, I mean, it's what we live for as writers.
And one of the things I remember being struck is the story each one of the character you know, they feel so relevant today also. I mean, to think that these happened 50 years ago, and yet so many of the stories are so relevant today. And of course, your words, I mean, it's just, they go so perfectly with the music. And our composer, Iain, has this wonderful way of, you know, working with you, you know, kind of bring music, bring live music to, you know.
Well, as you know, yeah. Iain lives in London, so this was an opera composed on email and WhatsApp.
Oh God, I hope you saved those email, you know, one of the musicologists.
No, I'd never do that. They were, I'm sure some of them were really humiliating. I would never say those.
I don't know though, but you know, if you look at music history, you know, it's those correspondence that all the musicologists, you know, they're looking for letters, trying to get a glimpse into, you know, Mozart and you know, what they were thinking. But anyway.
Well, unfortunately, Iain and I got along really well, so there's nothing juicy in them at all. It's not Hugo von Hofmannsthal and Strauss. It's all like, oh yeah, thanks, honey, great.
Like, I know, right? Yeah. And actually, Iain and I had a lot of conversation during the rehearsal every day, you know, he and I. So, but that's another story for another time. Iain, of course, couldn't be here with us today because it is now in the middle of the night in London. So it's actually what, 1:13 a.m. But he recorded a message for everyone, and we'll share that with you now.
Iain Bell here, the composer of Stonewall. I'm so happy you're all together discussing our little baby a year on. I can't believe it's a year. But Stonewall for me remains the most important musical experience and journey of my life. When I got the call from City Opera 2017, I think so. Anyway, when I got the call, it was an immediate yes. Not only is City Opera an institution that is known for forward thinking and pushing the boundaries of opera, but I'm a firm believer that when you get the call from the LGBTQ community, when you get the call to represent, you say yes, and you say thank you. Because there's no greater honor, there's no greater privilege than to be able to tell stories, the stories of our community. And then when I came to realize the rest of the creative team that were involved, with Mark and his astonishing storytelling, the characters he's created are among the most rich and varied I've ever had the good fortune of telling. Lenny, who is known to be just the past master at directing new operas, and Carolyn Kwan. Yeah, it was a yes. I think musically, I just finished, 2 weeks prior to starting this piece, I just finished a very dark, Victorian-drenched piece about murder. And this piece offered me the opportunity to enrobe myself musically in a completely different language, which I just relished. You know, I think you should always challenge yourself. And you know, thank heavens I got the opportunity to do that. So to be able to write music that was so much more percussive, that had a much more rhythmic element as I was nodding to Motown and to the music of the time, of the jukeboxes of the time, whether it be in the riffs in Renata's Getting Ready music, or indeed in the jukebox songs that I wrote for the opening of the actual scene within Stonewall itself. Oh, amazing. And it was I just relished that. And then to get to work with Darling Love, the woman that is responsible for some of the biggest Christmas anthem that we know, and to write something for her to sing was something that, you know, doesn't come around very often. So all of these things, and then combine that with the electricity that was backstage during rehearsals, during performances. We were so united. Electricity is an understatement. We were magnetically impelled together in a sense of unity, in a sense of purpose that I've never known. And you know, I think we still feel it. I think we're still umbilically tied with each other. You were all a joy to work with. You were all just such a heartwarming reiteration of why we work in this industry. I can't reiterate that, but I will. It bears repeating. the characters in Stonewall, to be able to represent the drag community, to represent the trans community, to represent all different echelons of the LGBTQ community was something I couldn't have dared wish for, was something I didn't know would be possible. And as a London-based composer, to have a premiere in New York City of an opera in New York City was the stuff of dreams. And I don't know if you can tell, but I quite enjoyed the experience. And I think it was all the better for the fact that it was an idea that came to City Opera, and not with the usual 5 years that you would get to plan an opera, but with maybe 18 months or 2 years. And I think it was all the better for it because we had a real fire lit under us. And I just thank each and every one of you for Mark's storytelling, for Lenny's innovative set and directorial work, for Carolyn's astonishing mastery of the musical demands I was making for 3 choruses at once and a dectet of solo voices into it. Yeah, it was. I made a lot of demands of her, and you just sailed. And my amazing cast, crew. Oh, please let's do it again, please. Can't wait. See you guys.
Oh, I wish he were there. He was here with us. So, for those of our audience listening, obviously some of them will have seen it, some of them maybe didn't see it, and that guy, like Michael said, it really is an opera that I hope will go places, and people, it really is an opera, a story that deserves seeing. But for those people that may not have seen it, and those people even who have seen it, maybe each one of you can talk about your character a little bit, and what the character was. What was it like to sing the character? What was the story, each one of your story? Brian, you want to go first?
Sure. So my role, his name is Carlos, and he's a Latin American teacher that this is very, very relevant because of the recent Supreme Court ruling, but he was fired for rumors of him being gay, and of course he is a gay man. And someone somewhere saw something and said something to somebody, and so that's all it took. And he was brought in, fired, and basically lost his livelihood. And what we have to do in as singers, and for those people that are not used to performing on stage, our job is to really sit and imagine and try to figure out what these people were thinking and feeling. And so I challenge you all, at least in my case specifically, to really think about your job, your life, whatever it is that you do. Hopefully it's something that you love, your career, and think about being pulled in, one day and having that all end for something that you are, losing everything, though you never did anything to deserve it. And that's something that I had to wrestle with for my character, and all the other characters had other things to wrestle with as well. So that's Carlos. And he went to Stonewall that night to blow off steam because that's what he needed to do. And
Maggie, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I played Maggie, who is...
Oh, sorry. See, this is what happens in the rehearsal. You start calling each other by their actual name, their scene name, and anyway, yes, Lisa.
Maggie. I was happy to be Maggie. I love Maggie. I love Maggie.
Maggie, you want to go first?
Maggie was my girl. She would be my girl. So she's just kind of this tough as balls lesbian that is just done with everybody. Her family is not happy with her, just where she lives, she can't be comfortable on the subway. People harass her, and she'll tell them where to stick it. Like, she's very happy to tell people that what they're doing is not right and not okay by her. And so I feel like part of her, she obviously isn't me, but part of her and me that I really felt attached to her with is that she stands up for other people too. It's not just herself. you know, in the bar, she sees everybody getting pushed around and she's like, no, this isn't happening. This is not happening anymore. And she's the one who just is grabbing batons and like threatening the police and telling them to their face that what they're doing is not right, that you can't just push people around this way because you have a badge. So like what Brian said, you do have to sit and think about how these characters are different from you, which was easy for me in the way that she's a lesbian and I'm not. So, and that's very pivotal in this piece. But there's so many things about her that I could connect with and that really felt natural to me as well. So it was just one of those roles that, I mean, she's awesome. Maggie's awesome.
Lisa, do you feel like your personality naturally fit with Maggie's personality? Like, are you kind of Maggie in your real life in terms of, you know, you see injustice and you'll you know, you can't help but, you know, say something?
Well, I've only been in 2 fights. I've only punched 2 people, and both times that has happened were people that were bullying other people. I got. But
you punch people in real life?
Maybe.
That's awesome.
I kind of got into it with a guy at a bar who was bullying a friend of ours.
I also saw her almost punch somebody one time, but that's a different story.
Oh my God, Lisa, I have a new found love for you. Oh my God. Sorry.
They all deserved it. They all deserved it.
I'm sure. Now, Michael, did you know about this before you hired Lisa? Oh, we can't hear you. Anyway, Lisa, keep going.
No, I can't. Oh. You know what? Your system with this is not working. Lisa and I go back a very, very long time. And she was the only person, in my opinion, that was going to perform this role, period. From the minute I read the libretto and realized that it was a mezzo role, I knew we had our girl. There was not even a question.
So you didn't know about her experience.
Well, I'm from experience. And let me tell you something. You don't want to be on the wrong side of her because she'll give you a beat.
So that's wonderful.
But she does like dresses. That's the thing.
Yes, I do.
That's the thing.
I do. But I loved my outfit too. That was the most comfortable costume. I mean, the shoes, all of it. Yes. So there.
It's good to be a lesbian sometime. And I am one, so I get to say that. So Jordan, you want to go next?
Sure. So, right. So I played Renata Maynard. The character's name was Maynard, and his drag name, his persona was Renata. He's an 18-year-old Black kid from New York City that was going out for his 18th birthday to the Stonewall Inn, and it was his first time in drag. Although, you know, I'm sure that he had spent a lot of time dressing up before that. So the special part about that character, really for me, I mean, that character like completely changed my life. Like the whole experience completely changed my life. But the fact that, and I say this, everybody here has heard me say this, but it's like the fact that I could even at all approach portraying someone of my own community, of the Black queer community on an opera stage, right? It's unheard of. I mean, I as soon as I heard about the role, because I remember I heard about the role while I was doing Dear Eric with City Opera in the January of last year. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, there's no other, like, this is what I want to do. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, like the art form in its entirety just really needs more work like this. I think even watching it now, like what hits me most is the fact that, like, you know, police brutality has always been an issue. And of course, even more so now where we just have like a lens on it. We have a focus on it right now. And I mean, of course, I've always thought about it as something that needs to change, and being a part of that story and being part of the Black experience of that story meant so much to me. I can't, nothing else compares to it. And I think that Mark and Iain both really wrote the role well and created an experience for me that was just unlike anything else I'd ever experienced.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You know, just even seeing that little excerpt that we saw so far, it just feels so raw and powerful with everything that's going on right now. And I'll never forget, actually, one day I came to rehearsal. I don't remember. I walked into rehearsal. It was in the middle of summer because it was June, right? So all of us, we walk in, and I was struck that the only people in the room, I think I have a picture of this somewhere, that the only people in the room that were wearing high heels were all males or people who don't typically wear heels, and
that's as it should be. That's
right?
as
and
it
all
should
the
be.
girls are in tennis shoes. We're all in our flats. We're comfortable, and clearly it was the first time a lot of people were wearing heels for the first time. And I love that by the end of the summer, by the end of the project, there were people walking around in heels, totally enjoying it. It was wonderful.
I have to say that when we were in rehearsal for Dear Eric, and we needed to cast this role, and we were looking for something very particular, and Jordan and I, he'd been in several things, and unusually you don't walk up to a person inviting them to audition, but the first thing you say is, "But can you walk in heels?" And his answer was yes. And so I said, "Good, here, learn this aria and come in next week."
And I did that audition in heels.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
I did, yeah.
See, I'm learning new things even a year later. So Jessica, you want to talk about Leah?
Yes. So Leah, different pronunciations.
What is the correct pronunciation, Mark?
I say Leia.
Leia, okay.
Yeah, I do.
Maybe in England it's like Leah, who knows? But anyway, since Leia is an American, we're going to go with Leia.
All right.
Sorry, Iain, I love you. So I had the honor of portraying Leia, who is a femme lesbian. She grew up in the suburbs of Boston in a somewhat conservative Jewish family. And she went away to college to Bryn Mawr.
Of course.
Typical.
I was so disappointed it wasn't Smith, but I'm just saying.
It didn't fit the meter,
Right, I know. Bryn Mawr, it needs 2 words, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, as stereotype will have it, she became infatuated with a woman at Bryn Mawr. And so her family caught wind of it and ended up bringing her home and sending her to conversion therapy, which is extremely intense and usually doesn't work. I mean, never has worked. There's no scientific evidence that it has ever worked. And so, like for most people, it did not work for Leia. And one thing I just loved about this character, and Mark, you're just brilliant in every way, because Leia, these horrible things have happened to her, but she still has this sense of humor about her, that she experienced just like total trauma, but is able to deal with it in humor and making light of things and just saying, well, in one section of the aria, she's talking about the pills and the electric shock and is sort of reliving that in like a frenzied state. But then in the next moment, she's saying, well, that wasn't for me. So I still love women. Sorry about it, and I'm probably going to meet one tonight at Stonewall. And lo and behold, she does.
And Jessica, I mean, I remember musically, I mean, it was a lot of high notes, right? It was higher and higher and but also really kind of bring out the personality of Leia. I mean, what was it like for you to sing that? I mean, you feel like the music was a part of your character, which is kind of how I feel the whole time.
I mean, it was set in such a way that the text came through really well, and it was a little bit more like not everything was super high. I think the text came through really well in like sort of a middle register when she could just be kind of herself, talking to the audience and talking to the people around her on a park bench, to the guy.
There were definitely a lot of laughters during your aria. It was just, I mean, what you think the world we live in today, we deal with it differently, and certainly a lot of us use humor, to try to cope with things.
Absolutely.
And Mark, was that what you were thinking, like for Leia, in terms of her coping, or not necessarily?
Well, You're talking about conversion therapy.
That's true.
It's horrible. It's wrong. It's immoral. And it should never be done. And we keep learning again and again. I mean, there was something last week where someone said, well, I tried conversion therapy, but I'm gay, so I'm going to shut down my company. He ran a company in conversion therapy. It's wrong. To me, that's just funny. You just have to find the humor in something, because I want the audience to love her. And I want the audience to feel that she's a survivor. And if she's going to Stonewall that night, she's a survivor. Mm-hmm. And she's going to get through it. And the great thing about her is that she falls in love. The only real love story that happens in Stonewall is between two women.
We have the two lovers here, right? I mean, technically, it's between Maggie and Leia, wasn't it?
Exactly. That's the only love we see. There might be other things going on, of course, but
oh, there are a lot of things going on, right?
Yeah. I saw a lot of it too.
Oh, come on. It's a gay bar. That's what it's for.
Right.
But the only kiss we see is between two women. And it was very important to me to honor the role of lesbian women during Stonewall, because it's often portrayed as white, gay, male. And it wasn't that way. It just wasn't that way.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I should mention, I met my first girlfriend at Smith, and Smith changed the rest of my life in many ways. Oh Liz, want to talk about your character?
Yeah, I'm Liz Bauk, and I played Sarah. Sarah is a trans woman. She has waited a really long time in my own backstory that I came up with. To have the means to transition. We get a little bit of information in the aria that she must have come out to her parents, and her dad got very upset with her. She had to move away. At that time, she had also seen a doctor, maybe a family doctor, and the doctor just kind of laughed and said, like, you're sick, like you're a sick person. You know, there's no way that you could be a woman. So she's been through a lot of pain. I imagine that she moved away probably to New York in her male body at the time, and got some kind of job and waited a long time, saved up money, and was finally able to have hormone therapy and to have her gender reassignment surgery. So in this opera, she's come a long way. And this night is the 1-year anniversary of her physical transition. She finally is in New York. She's near the village. She feels happy in her body and with who she is. And she decides to go out that night to celebrate at the Stonewall. So it's like a really tender and special moment for her.
And she calls it her birthday. I think that's important, Liz. It's the day of her birth.
Yes.
Yeah, she's finally
happy birthday to me.
Right. She's finally herself. And Liz, talk about what it was like for you. Of course, you know, it was really your character was a major milestone. I mean, it was the first character in an opera commissioned by a major company to have a trans character written for a trans singer. I mean, what was it like for you? I mean, for those people who are listening in who might not actually know your story.
Well, just in terms of that happening, I have so many mixed feelings. Of course, I'm thrilled that it's like the first big company doing this. But another part of me is also asking, like, why isn't this happening more? And why aren't we seeing more? Why aren't we hearing more? And about transgender characters in opera. They do exist, and there have been some other smaller companies writing things for them as well. But why isn't it normalized yet? Is the flip side of the coin to my excitement of being part of something as prestigious and wonderful as Stonewall. Is how can we move forward and continue creating space for transgender artists on the stage, and not just to portray transgender characters, but also for us as transgender artists to just portray women or men or non-binary people or any kind of character. So that's my feelings about all of that.
What has it been like? I mean, do most people you meet know that you are trans? Or you're a trans singer? Or do I mean, or I'm just wondering what have your experience been like?
What has my experience been more personally?
Yes.
So at the time in 2018, I realized that I have never been happy in my own body, in the female body that I've been born in, and that I still physically mostly have. And I realized that I was a transgender man. And so I was in the middle of my own coming out and my own transition from living I used to be very feminine woman, or attempting to be, to just this pure joy of realizing that I didn't have to put on makeup to be myself, and I could wear men's clothing, and I could change my ID, and I could really live my life as my truest self. So that piece of things, even though the genders were reversed, that piece of deep joy and peace was what I wanted to bring to Sarah, because that's what she was experiencing in the moment of her aria as well.
I think it definitely felt it. I mean, you bring that, unique understanding to it, in your voice, in your portray. Now, of course, one of the big important part of Stonewall is the choreography. I mean, a big part of it in the middle is this amazing bar scene. And Richard Stafford, our Stonewall's choreographer, actually is not able to be with us today, but he wanted to share some of his thoughts. Here's a message from him.
Hi, everyone. It's Richard Stafford. Happy anniversary. I'm so thrilled to be able to be with you, at least on Zoom. Sorry I can't join the panel discussion tonight. I had a little altercation on my bicycle with the garbage truck in Provincetown last week, and I have to be in the hospital tomorrow having some surgery on my elbow, which was broken. But I did want to just record something to say what an honor and privilege it was to have been with you all on this, well, really for me, earth-shaking production of Stonewall, the opera, last year. When Michael came to me with this idea of helping to create the choreography for the show, I was so thrilled and excited to be part of it. I remember Stonewall happening when I was a child. I was young when it happened, but still it stuck with me. And this idea of creating or imagining so that we could create together the dances that might have happened in the club that night was just something I could not pass up. And I'm so happy to have met and worked with each and every one of you, all the creators of the show, and you, the cast. It has been a real highlight of my career. So I celebrate with you all tonight. And again, I'm sorry I can't be with you. Goodbye.
Aw. Yeah, it's, really.
Everybody loves Richard.
I know, right?
I know, right?
I also would like to just interject about Lenny Foglia, our director.
Yes,
who was a major part of this entire process from the very, very beginning. He sends his regrets as well. We had a couple of emails back and forth today, but he's traveling by car and just sends his regrets. But I want to acknowledge the role he played in fashioning this production is very, very important. Mark and others can speak more about it, but I want to at least get a word in about Lenny.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have to say that as well. And what I want to talk about with Lenny is that I sent Lenny the libretto first, and Lenny came back to me. He was talking about as you know, the opera is in 3 parts. And it looks like people froze.
No, keep going.
Okay. Maybe you're just angry. I don't know. And Lenny was key in the storytelling. He was absolutely brilliant in looking at the libretto, and he saw part 3, And he came back to me, because Lenny writes librettos also. So he knows how to talk to writers. And he said, I don't know what you're doing here. This is like, it's not specific. And I rewrote it in like 15, 20 minutes or something. And he said, that's what I was looking for. And I love the rapport that we all had with Lenny. His contribution to the success of Stonewall cannot be minimized. The staging that he and Richard did of the riot, of the dances, everything was just so brilliant and so important. So
yeah, Lenny definitely has the instinct.
It's also worth mentioning Rick and Christian Sordelay, the fight choreographers as well,
absolutely.
were hugely important to that as well.
Actually, I mean, honestly, it was an entire team effort. I mean, everyone, you know, you're about to see more of an excerpt. I mean, and everyone really is so important in representation and the energy people bring, all the backstage, stage manager, the entire New York City Opera team. Really, it took everyone. So here's another short clip from the Stonewall, and this is the scenes in the bar where as the Ray is getting out of hand. I so wish you can see the whole opera. I mean, what happened right after that is some of the most amazing staging and the music, the climax, and all the tension, the fight scene, the light changes. It's just an incredible production, really. I mean, Michael, when did the idea for a commission of this piece come from?
Well, I think are the only opera company that had made a determination, and when City Opera was reorganized with my administration in 2016, we decided that every year during Pride Month, we were going to do an LGBT themed work. And we started with Angels in America. We're going to, on this weekend, we're going to commemorate the entire body of work that we have done so far. We started with Angels in America, which was a New York premiere and very successful for us. The following year, we did the American premiere of Brokeback Mountain, which was also very successful. And then kind of by accident, we noticed that the 50th anniversary of Stonewall was coming. And City Opera has a long tradition of commissioning new work. And the idea was that the best way to really continue that tradition would be to commission a theme, an opera about Stonewall. And so then we had to set about finding the right creative team to put this all together. Lenny Foglia is one of the first people I ever spoke to about it. Mark is, very, very well known and also very busy. And I have to admit, the first thing I thought was, you could try and ask Mark Campbell, but he's going to be busy. And he was busy, but he did it anyway, which is a testament to him. And Iain is somebody whose work I admired, and was also when I did my research, because I had never met Iain when I first broached the subject with him. I did subsequently meet him in London. But I did do a lot of research and found out that he's fabulous with deliverables. Because what we couldn't do was announce that we were doing this world premiere and then kick it down the road. It was only going to be the 50th anniversary of Stonewall once. And we wanted to, get there, and we needed to get to the finish line, and we needed a team that was going to commit to a very aggressive schedule. I mean, new operas, are in development for decades, it seems. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And this wasn't going to be it. We were going to develop it on a schedule like they used to develop new musicals in the 50s. They get an idea in September, and in June it was opening, you know. So that was the idea behind it. And, you know, I've said this many times, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. We really had, yes, it was a good idea. And the team that came together, delivered on time. There was never, I mean, there may have been arguments, but it never blew up. We didn't have people walking out of the room and needed a 2-week cooling off period.
We didn't have 2 weeks, Michael.
We didn't have to. We didn't have to.
I think there were some walking out, but everybody come back after 2 minutes. But that's all you get, you know.
And you know, we were fortunate that we put together a spectacular cast. We, you know, again, you know, having Carolyn as our music director, the production team, sets, lighting, everybody involved did a tremendous job, and the cast was fabulous, and they all were correct. They represented the best of city opera. Some young people really finding their way on a big stage for the first time. Some people that are seasoned and are, you know, still, you know, helping to create the diversity in the cast and the age differences in the cast. From some people that were older deliberately to the very young people that were in the bar. It's probably, I would have to say, is the highlight of my career, having achieved this for the company and being the person who gave this to the world is something that I think it'll probably end up on my tombstone.
Michael, I think we're all so grateful for you. I was recently asked, you know, tell us about one of the most meaningful artistic experience you have. And I didn't even have to think about it. It was Stonewall. I mean, in so many ways. And Mark, actually, I still wonder about this, you know, we spend a lot of time reading about Stonewall before and after, but how many of the characters are based on historical figures, and how many of it were completely your creation? I don't know if it's a secret or.
You're asking me to have a memory, and I just don't do that anymore.
I guess for what it's worth, they could all be historic character, right? It feels like, certainly that's what it feels like.
It's not
just
like
don't
that.
know.
I mean, I've written a number of operas that have to do with historical events or historical characters. What you do is you read about it, you research, and then you throw it all away. Yeah. Because you have to imagine that every story is fictive, that everything, you know, that it's not enough that it happened. You have to make it happen in your imagination for it to exist as art, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it feels so relevant and so current, right? That it could happen, you know, every one of those characters could still be someone.
Well, Carolyn, let's look at this, okay? You're gonna get me on my high horse.
Okay.
It saddens me a lot.
That's true, yeah.
That we have to continue to fight.
Yeah.
That there is still conversion therapy going on. That we jump up with joy that SCOTUS last week said that, oh yeah, LGBTQ people should not be fired from their jobs. And I applaud that. Of course I'm excited about that. But the truth is that it's bullshit. Like I shouldn't have to, I'm a human being, you're a human being, everyone here is a human being. We shouldn't have to constantly defend. And what Trump has done with transgender rights and healthcare is abominable. And it saddens me as a gay man of a certain age, I'll keep saying that, that we have to keep fighting. But we do have to keep fighting. Yeah. That's the thing. We can never lose the fight. I don't even know how. I don't even know why we're fighting anymore, because it's just so. It's hard. It's hard for me sometimes to even talk about it. Because
it absolutely is. Actually, I mean, Jordan, I don't know if I can put you on the spot. What has it been like for you?
Put me on the spot. You know, I like
that.
No,
Jordan. But Mark, you're welcome to come back anytime.
Okay, but Jordan on the spot. Forget about me. God.
No, come on, Mark. You coming back in anytime. But you know, I mean, it's. I mean, what's happening
I'm joking.
right
I'm
now?
joking.
I know you're joking.
It's true. I mean, like I very much. It's fine to put me on the spot. First of all, second of all, because I want to talk about this anyways. You know me.
We have to, right? I mean, and part of what we learn through Stonewall is we have to talk about it.
Absolutely. And the thing is that, like, of course, like along with Mark, like I'm outraged by everything that is still going on. But the fact of the matter is that, like, Stonewall marked really a beginning of just the resistance of the movement against something that was already in place, you know, and it was started by Black, sometimes trans. I think at the time it was very hard to, like, you know, have any kind of like label for your gender identity, you know, the way that we have the privileges that we can now to say, like, you know, I fit into this category. A lot of people didn't have that experience, and they were just being themselves, and that was the place that they could go to be themselves. A lot of Black, brown, trans people were in this situation where all of a sudden, like, they were experiencing a physical level of oppression that they had experienced their whole lives, both emotionally and then, you know, like also physically. Like, being outside was just dangerous, you know? So I think for me, it's kind of like, this is a fight that's been going on for a really long time, that, like, parts of our community have experienced the privileges of the results of this fight more so than other parts of our community. And I think that Stonewall is a pivotal moment, but it's also not the pinnacle of the experience of liberation for everybody. And I think that's what we're experiencing now, is that we collectively, none of us, it's like the same thing, right? People are like, no pride for all of us without liberation, or no pride for some of us without liberation for all of us, right?
Right.
We can't feel liberated until the entire community comes together and is actually free. And I think that was something that I held close to me during the whole process of Stonewall, that, like, you know, the person that I was portraying was not as liberated, right? Did not have the same experience. And in that moment, probably felt more of the brunt of the experience than other people. Of course, it was a crazy riot, and it was like all over the place, but it's so important to note that we are not all liberated because of just this experience. And especially right now, I think the lens, again, is on how do we move forward with equality for everybody, especially in our community. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it was interesting. Obviously, I have a lot of very diverse, a lot of different friends. And one of my African-American friends was telling me that, you know, I'm not afraid of difficult conversation. I'm afraid of being killed. I mean, it's, and then you hear that, you know, you realize there's so much privilege of, you know, so many of us I go out as a woman, you know, yes, I drive my car out, you know, I worry about, you know, potentially getting harassed or attacked or raped, whatever, as a female. That's our challenge. But I hardly ever get in the car and worry about getting stopped by the police and what that might mean.
Right.
And there's such level of systemic racism that people don't think about. And one of the things I think Stonewall was so fantastic as a story is, you know, we have to talk about it, and we have to continue to talk about it. We have to fight, we have to continue to fight, and we have to be not afraid to talk about these things. And, you know, I just love Maggie's line, you know, do something, you know, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, we collectively have to do something, because, like, the Stonewall story is a story of police brutality. It is, like, it's a story of police brutality, like no ifs, ands, or buts, you know? And it's been something that's been going on for a really long time. And, like, what is our community going to do about moving forward, like, understanding that we aren't all feeling the same level of, like, compassion and love and understanding, you know what I mean? Like, that's, I think, what I'd like to sort of glean from the conversation moving forward. But yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, the final scene of the opera takes place, you know, sort of the following morning after the night of the riot. And, you know, with the broken glasses everywhere and, you know, kind of shattering like diamonds. And the final words of the opera, the entire cast singing what do those mean, words mean to all of you right now, kind of a year after the war premiere, especially the world we live in right now, much to be done. I mean, that's another, God, Mark, you have like all the words that are just so relevant today,
Well, I know where to steal.
Well, you know what John Williams says, good composers borrow.
John Williams is a great composer. Don't.
Great Oh, actually, sorry, it's Stravinsky actually who said it. Good composers.
Also a good composer.
Good composers borrow, great composers steal. So there you go.
Yeah.
But just to wrap it up, each one of you, I don't know, what's on your mind?
I would like to just say
please.
like one or two little things. Along the lines of much to be done. Much to be done. We say that at the end of the opera a billion times, and we could say it a billion more, and we could stand to say it even a billion more than that. Because there really is. There's so much, and it's so individual, depending on who you are, what resources you have, where you can contribute, what you can give, your time, your energy, your money, your presence, your face, whatever it is. And it takes, figuring out who you are and where you fit, and where you're best used. And in this specific moment in time, particularly talking about police brutality against Black Americans, we talk about all minorities facing oppression and having to come together to support our brothers and sisters who are feeling it a little bit worse or a lot worse, than anybody else. And me speaking specifically as a biracial person who is white passing, we have an ethical and moral responsibility to be very careful about the actions that we take, because I, as a white passing biracial person, have a cultural contribution and an upbringing from a different culture that I can offer, but I do not have the same level of discrimination that I have faced in my life. And it's hard as a performer to decide where you can, come, is it appropriate for me to take this role versus this role or whatever, because of all of these things. And as me playing Carlos as a Latin American person, a biracial person, I thought I had the cultural contribution and the discriminative experience as a gay man to be able to portray this character. And it took a lot of thinking of whether that was the right move or not for me. And I think everybody needs to think about that. What privileges do you have that you can use to help others? And that is what is much to be done.
So true.
I'm done. Sorry.
No, it's perfect. It's exactly. I mean, anybody else have some?
Can I piggyback off of that?
Please.
As an ally, and as someone who grew up very close to New York City and basically stayed there my entire life up until now. I'm in Savannah, Georgia right now, but I was surrounded by the LGBTQ plus community. I had such diverse friends that it makes it hard to believe that it's not like that everywhere. And so much to be done to me means thinking about all the rest of the community throughout the country, throughout the world, that doesn't have these privileges of being in a very liberal state in a city. And even within that city, there is still that discrimination and that hate. And so it means to me to really take note of the places and the people who are not given these privileges, and shine a light on the fact that this is still an issue, that there is still inequality, and to just support my friends and people who aren't even my friends just as much as I can, and play roles of the people in the community, support others who are playing roles, support writing that elevates these people, because seeing the LGBTQ plus community on the stages, in the movie theaters, it gives visibility and it normalizes the community, to show that, eventually the hope, right, is that it shouldn't make a difference. The community we should all be one community. It shouldn't be two different communities. But until then, we do need to uplift the LGBTQ community until we reach that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about just what's happening in the world right now. You know, the constant, the struggle of immigrants, the struggle of minority. I mean, it really, it's, you know, we have to continue to fight for each other and do what we can, really. Sorry, sorry, Elisa, I keep cutting you off.
No. I feel that this piece in particular, that there needs to be more pieces like this that are written, that are showing parts of the community that are not always shown in this art form. I mean, in general, in this art form, but I'm talking about in movies, TV shows. We're only just starting to get TV shows and movies written about anybody who is not a white couple, or, you know, it's just very, the more you, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was born in Oakland. I grew up in the East Bay, very, you know, inner city type schools. And my experiences were somewhat what Jessica was saying, in that until my dad moved away and I spent some time away from the Bay Area, I had no idea that some of these issues were so terrible in parts of the country. And anyhow, I feel more of this work needs to be done. More pieces like this need to be written. More, this piece needs to be done more, because when people see it, they relate to it. That some people who may not know these characters, and what I loved about the piece so much too is that there are so many different characters, and you do get a little backstory on everybody and where everybody came from and how they evolved through the piece, which is very, very difficult. And I think Mark and you did such a beautiful job with that. So
it's certainly one of the most enthusiastic audience at all the performances. You know, people certainly react to it and really were touched. You know, we're going to close with those final moments of the opera, much to be done. And, you know, I just thank you all so very much for being with us, and really happy Pride from New York City Opera and from all of us. Michael, any last word? Mark, I know, I'm sure you have last words.
I thank everybody who's participated in this. Some of you and the people, you know, by video, Iain and Richard and Lenny, who wasn't able to make it, and everybody who made this production happen as an effort, and all of you for making the time tonight to celebrate this historic occasion. I'm very, very proud of this piece. I thank the audience. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you thought this was informative. We have to hope that a year from now, we are performing an LGBT themed piece for a live audience that are sitting next to each other, with an orchestra that's in one orchestra pit and with a chorus that's on stage, and we can get past this and move forward and keep this art form alive. In the meantime, that's what I have to get done. So thank you all very, very much. New York City Opera is here, and we love you, and we will be back soon. Stay tuned for information about our Saturday evening program as well. Thank you again. Bye-bye, everyone.